Alright, welcome back everybody to Tactics
3 weeks
Ogre.
had passed since the massacre at Balmamusa. Consumed with revenge, the Wallister took to the battlefield, wresting large swaths of territory from Galgastani control. The Duke's gambit was a success. Yet not all went as the Duke had intended. Though the atrocity galvanized the Wallister, those in the Galgastani camp who opposed their own Hierophant Balbatos did not rise to action. Worse, whispers of the truth behind what happened had begun to spread throughout Galgastan on the lips of Vice and his men. Where the Duke had sought to sow discord, a new sense of unity now grew among the Galgastani people. But the stalemate of forces along the Sonji Weald showed no signs of yielding clear victory to either side. Hoping to strike a decisive blow, the Duke pushed towards Balbatos' stronghold at Kuritanai. A daring, some said reckless, attempt to take the keep. Meanwhile, Denham arrived at the ruins of Balmamusa, with orders to harry the enemy's flank.
So we'll talk about all of this here as soon as I get into another battle, so we can talk about it. Otherwise I'm going to start talking over other people's lines. But try to keep all of that in mind for my upcoming rant conversation.
I hear no alarum, sister.
Alarum.
I think we made it.
What kind of English is this?
By the look of things, the Galgastani
Is
can't
this,
have
is
stationed
this
many
British
men here.
English? A U and
The fewer
alarm?
we must kill to be done with this business, the better.
You would have me fight such a battle with our numbers? Are you gone mad?
I mislike your tone.
Forgive me, Your Grace. We are more powerful now than ever, I grant you. But let us not forget we failed to rouse the Galgastani against Balbatos. Our resistance remains far outmatched.
I do not need you to tell me what I know so well.
Then I beg you to reconsider.
Humor your Duke. Hear my plan before you reject it, First, we dispatch a light force to secure Balmamusa, a small town southwest of Kuritanai. Thence to advance to the Zaod Moors.
You distract them by needling their flank? They will never fall for such a ruse.
Your ears would serve me better than your tongue. I mean to have our young hero lead the band. We will feed sweet lies to their whisperers, that it's no small band, but half our army that marches. A morsel they will find impossible to resist. Nor will they know whether it is from Almorica or Balmamusa that we strike.
And they will believe this tale.
The presence of the hero of Goliath will convince them. Balbatos would not think we place our hero at the head of so few. This will be enough to give Balbatos pause. But he is no fool. He will not commit the entirety of his forces to Balmamusa. No, he will divide his men between the Sonji Weald and the Zaod Moors. The martial advantage is his. Even with his forces split, he will not fear defeat. Yet only this way will we have a true chance at victory.
Perhaps. But if Balbatos does not split his troops, what then?
We must see that he does. There's more. Once our heroes have a foothold in Balmamusa, they will turn their attentions to the port of Ashton to the west. Balbatos will fear an assault, and with his troops mustering in Kuritanai, Ashton will be ripe for the taking.
Of course. Without Balmamusa or Ashton, they'll be cut off from the sea.
Is that so great a blow?
In Valeria, the sea is life. Without the bounty of her trade, we wither and die. Doubly so the Galgastani and their landlocked keep at Kuritanai. Believe our rumors or no, they must respond. And that means splitting their troops.
Should the gambit fail, we still weaken them by closing their ports.
what becomes of us?
If you sense disadvantage, withdraw swiftly.
So in the end, we still must fight a battle of Galgastan's choosing.
Oh, you fret like an old maid, Leonard. The plan is perfect.
As you say, Your Grace.
So as you can see, there's a lot of things that are different that, you know, I'm not sure, maybe they were the same. We just weren't aware of them because we weren't in the Duke's presence at that time. But one of the things that you sort of have to note initially in the Law playthrough is that one of the big differences in the Chaos playthrough, you're not part. You basically disowned the Duke, but in a way his secret stays a secret. You know, the fact that you, not you specifically, but they're involved in the slaughter of Balma Musa, and that caused the Galgastani to sort of splinter, if you will. The diehard Galgastani stayed diehard Galgastani. However, some of the rabble of either Wallisters or Galgastani that don't like the the leader. I'm start getting the names between Balbatos and Ronway and whatever the third one is. Confused now in my brain. But back to my point. So Vice's choice, he does the opposite of what Denham does. So in this case, we stay with the Duke. Vice leaves. He spreads the news that the Duke's behind the slaughter of Balma Musa, which is causing the Wallister / Galgastani not to rise to his side. Whereas in Chaos, the opposite happens, where his little secret sort of stays secret, and so that allows the Duke to gain some support from Wallisters or Galgastani that are not fully on board with the Duke. And because of that, you'll see that the outcome of the battle is different as well. Whereas the Duke Ronway when you choose to oppose the Duke, he comes to this key battle at the Sanjay Weald, and they win, and they push all the way to Galgastan, and he ends up not only overtaking the leader there, but he ends up executing it. Okay, and we saw that cutscene in chapter 2 of what was Chaos at that point, because there's no neutral path at that point. It splits off into neutrals, we've talked about. But what you run into here is that with Vice not on your side, he creates his own resistance to the Wallister, or not the Wallister. Yeah, the Wallisters, I'm sorry. He creates his own resistance to the Wallisters, and he starts spreading the truth of what happened at Balma Musa. So, because of that, the people that were sort of either ready to step up and depose the Galgastani, or the Wallisters that were waiting for sort of a moment to rally behind, they're not rally behind that. And so this very small thing, I understand not small, but this very small little change in the storyline affects the way everything sort of starts to fall in line. So instead of the people rallying to the Duke's cause, they're sort of hesitant to it. And so that causes Leonard to sort of be becoming impatient with, he wants the Duke to be patient, because he's not seeing the kind of response that he was originally promised, i.e. the people aren't rallying to their cause. And so because they're not having people rallying their cause, but rather the opposite, where people are actually leaving or deserting the army, it's putting a lot of pressure on their fighting capabilities, okay? And so you don't have the, you don't have an excess of people, but you do have enough people to take on Galveston, but it's sort of met as unlike in the Chaos where they succeed and push through, they're met sort of as in sort of either a stalemate or a losing position where they both lose a ton of men. Partly because, like I said, there's Vice who's dividing some of the troops away from, Galveston and the Wallisters. And so, he's looking at the situation, the Duke, and he's thinking, well, we just need to keep pushing. We need to keep pushing. We need to keep moving. And Leonard keeps saying, we don't have the people. We don't have the morale. We don't have the things that we need to do to just hurry up and rush and push through to Galveston. We have to be patient. We have to wait for the pieces, the moves on the board to play out before we react. And I understand there's sort of, in terms of war, decisions get made and the troops do your bidding, and based on what happens with the troops, you either look like a genius or a complete moron, and some of that has to do with, well, what is your enemy doing to counteract you? Do you have the manpower to push into wherever you're trying to push into? Are you making gains? Are you stuck? What there's lots of factors in it, I know. I mean, depends on what war you want to talk about. Like in World War I, you're stuck in the trenches. No one's making any progress, so people are just dying and no land's being made. In World War II, you've got the tank and the blitzkrieg, so you're capturing large swaths of territory. But the question is, when do you start overextending yourself? There's not really a worry about overextension in World War I because you gain 500 feet or a mile of territory, and then you lose a mile of territory, and you gain it, you lose it, and really the only thing that ultimately changed was just people dying all over the place. And there was sort of this romantic notion of war at that point, go off, fight for your country, come back a hero. But in every case, everybody lost. I mean, the only winners were the ones that basically came in at the end, like the United States, or did not participate fully. So you're losing a generation of men to a war that you end up, at the end, you are the victor or the loser. But were you really the victor in reality, or did you just sort of delay your loss for another 20 years or something? I don't know. It's complicated, I know. But yeah, I mean, this little thing, the fact that Vice is not on your side, he's on the opposite side, and instead of being fucking nuts, crazy, banana, boogers, whatever you want to call him, he's like this down-to-earth, sane, we're doing what's best for the Wallisters, we can't be held accountable by the Duke or the Hierophant or anyone else. We need to create a unified front for the people,
The Zayard Moors are within our grasp.
Onward. But yeah, so they sent Denham to do the, wouldn't call it the dirty work, but he's essentially trying to create a diversion to pull the Hierophant's men away. And this causes other problems because when he does split his troops and there's a stalemate at the Sanjay Wild, that meant all of those forces that were distracted by Denham are now there as reinforcements for the decimated Galvestani army, whereas the devastated Wallister army That's their main force that got devastated.
Denim of Goliath? I see a rumor in the flesh.
I hate
Then
how
Balma Musa
if
was
you
no
listen
feint
if you listen to
after
all these
all.
voices long enough, you realize that they
His
had like
Eminence
5
must hear
voice
this.
actors that
Go,
did every
now.
voice in this fucking game.
We must halt their advance as long as we can. Remember, we fight not for ourselves. We fight for Golgastan.
I don't know. I mean, I understand, like, if you say you had these little mini bosses that no one really pays attention or cares to, and you have like 4 voice actors that voice, like, say 20 different people, and you're able to change the accent or whatever to sort of disguise it. But it feels like you've got 2 female voice actors and 3 male voice actors that are doing all of the voice acting for everybody. I know there's some exceptions in here, but it's a little nuts to me. I won't say this is the worst level. There's definitely worse levels than this one because it's essentially a flat open plain that's only sort of the only thing that really slows you down is the fact that it is a watery, swampy area, so you kind of don't want to end up in any one of these water squares, puddles, whatever you want to call them. You can see swamp gives 5 bonus points for archers, but nothing to physical attacks. So, well, the fact that the terrain matters is brilliant, but at the same time, that's a little frustrating to me as well. It's like, yeah, if I'm standing in swamp, it's gonna be harder for me to swing a sword. At the same time, it's like, ugh, why would you fight in a swamp? I'm always confused when you see statistics on the news or online, and they don't give you a dollar amount. They just say this is how long it would take to afford a modest, insert whatever, a modest vehicle, a modest car. What constitutes a modest U.S. home? Okay. And then, like, okay, so if in 2000, okay, if you wanted to afford a modest home, you needed to earn roughly $15 or $16 an hour in 2000, okay? And then in 10 years, in 2010, that average hourly rate went up by roughly $5, okay? which seems about right in terms of like inflation. I'm not 100% sure in terms of, I'd have to do the math on that, but you know, they talk about inflation being whatever 1-2% per year over the course of 10 years. Maybe that is a little higher than it should be, I don't know. But the statistics then say, well, from 2010 to 2020, that went from a $5 per hour increase to a $10 hour increase. So from $2,016, 2010 at roughly $22.50 to $32.70 in 2020. Okay, and this is 2020 is sort of important because this is sort of when I think housing prices got off the rails in terms of, is it normal for prices to increase with inflation? Yes. Did people start overspending during COVID and hence drive the housing market into a frenzy that needs to be reset, or is going to eventually pop? The bubble is eventually going to pop on, according to me. Mr. I've never worked a day in finances / macroeconomics in my life, but sort of the point I'm trying to make here is if housing prices from 2000 to 2010 went up $5, and from 2010 to 2020 they went up twice as much. Okay, how do you go from
we share a grim cause,
$32 an hour in 2020 to $57 5 years later?
Simple reasoning of youth. I expected more.
I mean, that's a ridiculous. That's a ridiculous, unattainable jump, and it feels like these numbers. They'd have to be fake. It's a $25 increase in 5 years. So you have some major problems here because, like I said, if you go from 2000 to 2010, it's a $5 increase. You know, and that's over 10 years. Then you do the next 10 years, and it's $10 more, so essentially $1 increase per year. And then you're going from, in just 5 years, you're going from a $10 increase over 10 years to a $25 increase over 5 years, or a $5 increase per year. You know? I don't know. I don't know if it's a lack of space or what the story is, but or maybe people are buying up all the houses and just turning them into rental properties. I don't know, causing a scarcity in the market. But I mean, I know I kind of talked a little bit about this in the previous episode. I'm not going to talk about it because there's not much time left in this episode. But like, what is America anymore? Like, what is the American dream? Is it to own a house and a car, or is it to like rent the rest of your life? You know, I mean, if the ideal is to own your own property and have have a car for you and a car for the missus or whatever, and now you need to be making $57 an hour on average to afford a modest home, whereas 10 years ago that number was $32 an hour, and a decade prior to that it was $16 an hour. I don't know. This doesn't seem sustainable without some variation of major inflation or a major correction in the market. Or, we just start, I don't know. I'm not, I'll say we should just start taxing everybody out the fucking nose so that nobody has any money at all, so they can invest in nothing ever, whatever.
only I...
Dead.
I do not fight for vengeance.